So welcome back, Yogins. I'm back with another Yin sequence. This one I'm calling Basic Yin. And in this class, we work primarily the spine through all its articulations. So flexion, extension, lateral flexion, and twisting. But this sequence, if you do it in the right way, will also do a pretty good job of opening the hips as well. So while the focus mainly is on the spine, there is a touch of hip opening in there as well, and I think you'll feel that as you go through the sequence. As always, guys, if you do get something from this, it really helps me out if you give me a thumbs up, if you subscribe to the channel, and if you leave a comment, even just hello or I enjoyed that in the comments below, that helps me out. I'll see you on the other end. Enjoy the class. Namaste. So our first posture is going to be called the butterfly pose. You simply join your feet together like so and then fold forward. And nice and relaxed, so we don't need to pull, we don't need to push our knees down or do anything like that. These are some of the props that you might use. So you could use them in front of you to support your arms, forehead, torso. You could use them under your knees to support the knees. Or you could sit on a folded blanket or block to push you forward a little more aggressively. You have two options with the feet that really influence how the pose affects your body. So one option is as I have my feet now, with my feet out, and this tends to influence your back more. So it tends to be more of a back here affecting this area. It can affect the hips back here a little bit, just sort of depends on your body. And there's really no limit, so as long as I can keep the soles of my feet together, I can really push my feet out very far. And again, that really brings it out here into my outside of my hip. The other extreme is pulling the heels in really close, like this, and then coming forward. And this affects in here more. So this is the groin. So it's more of a groin stretch, especially if I drop my knees down while doing that. And if I straighten out my spine, I get even more in the groin. Now, of course, there's many positions between those two extremes. So feel free to experiment and find the one that you think is best for your body today. Today we're doing 5-minute holds, which is kind of the maximum for a Yin class. So usually with Yin, when I hear that people aren't really teaching Yin Yoga as Yin Yoga, it's because the holds are really short. Now Yin starts at about a minute, and again for a class like this, the maximum we would do would be 5 minutes. Any shorter than a minute, and you can make a strong argument that you really aren't doing Yin Yoga anymore. So we're gonna be here for 5 minutes. Now during that time, just try and relax and let your body soak up the stretches that you feel. We're about halfway through now, so we've got about 2.5 minutes left here. Okay, so we come up out of that shape and we'll do one more posture before we rest for a bit. So for this one, you may want to turn to face the long side of your mat as I'm doing. You may also want to sit on something like a block or a folded blanket. And the idea is we'd like our pelvis tilted forward. So the main issue, if you're going to have an issue in this posture, looks like this. And this happens to some people. That means you just have really tight muscles back here. Very common in our culture, so you don't have to feel bad or like there's something wrong with you. But if you're sort of holding yourself up like this, then I can recommend bending the knees so that you can have gravity pulling you forward more, or again, sitting on something. If it's really bad, then join your feet together and repeat this posture, and remember that you can alter it so that it affects you in a different way, okay? So this is called Dragonfly. That first one was called Butterfly. And we come forward and down, and now we definitely want to feel a stretch in here and a gentle stretch in our back. Now I do want to say that the stretch you feel in your back might be so gentle that you don't feel it. That's okay. So what we don't want to do is this, where we're yanking and pulling ourselves down so that we feel a stretch back here, because that can injure your spine without you even knowing you're injuring it. So you might feel fine, in fact you might like the way it feels, and yet if you get into that habit and continue doing that, you can hurt your spine over time. So let's just relax, let gravity do the work for us, and again we'll be here for 5 minutes. If that's too much for today, that's okay. You can come out of the pose if necessary, but try and minimize and eliminate unnecessary movement. You will get more out of the pose if you stay in it. So the analogy I might use is, imagine you're trying to bake something in your oven, and every minute or so you open the oven to look to make sure it's baking, and then you close the oven, and then you open it and look and you close it. It's never going to cook, right? Because you're dropping the temperature. So what your food needs is to have a consistent temperature over a period of time. It's exactly what we're doing here. A consistent stretch over a period of minutes, that is what Yin Yoga is about. If I come into it and then I'm like coming out of it again and then coming back in and coming out, now we're no longer really doing Yin Yoga anymore. I'm not saying there's no benefit to doing that, but it's not the same benefits we get from practicing Yin. So flow yoga is great. I teach it. On Mondays we do the flow class. Very good for you, but in a different way. All right, we've got about 3 minutes left here. Okay, so just gradually coming up. If you can, make it onto your back to relax without doing a lot of extra movement. And this is called a rebound. So we come onto our back, we just splay out. Now you might feel a lot of sensation, I do. In my back, in my hip, I feel quite a lot of sensation. That's normal, natural. And those sensations, once I relax, begin to dissipate, and that's what we want to feel. Okay, let's bring our legs in. We'll give them a little squeeze. This is our counter stretch. This is just the leg cradle. And the idea here is that the movement helps to counterbalance all that stillness. So if we feel kind of funky, which I do in my back and hip, again, I feel the sensations there. The movement helps to eliminate the discomfort or the imbalance, and that's exactly what I'm feeling. The more I move, the better I'm feeling. And then before we go on, we'll do a move that helps to stabilize the hips and the spine. Yin Yoga, when it's done properly, it generally is going to destabilize the hips and spine temporarily. And we do that to try and make them stronger. All right, so just like you fatigue a muscle to make it stronger temporarily, here we are destabilizing hips and spine again to make them stronger. Okay, so hands under the hips, extend the legs up. If there's any pain in your back, you're going to bend your knees, otherwise legs are straight. Lift the head and neck, take a nice deep breath, exhale, lower the legs toward the ground. And just before they touch, take a nice deep breath and exhale, relax onto your back. Okay. All right, this next posture is called Banana or Bananasana. It targets the side of the waist, the side of the hip, and the ribs. So I recommend moving your hips over to the right edge of your mat. Then you take your left leg to the left and cross your right ankle over it. I already feel the stretch here. Today I'm very sensitive in this area, so I already feel it. Some days I need to be much more aggressive. So if you need to be more aggressive, bring the arms up overhead, grab your right wrist with your left hand. That stretches this area even more. And then to be even more aggressive, walk or wiggle your upper body over to the left as far as you can. So now I'm feeling a very nice, intense stretch all along that right side of my body. There are two things to be cautious of in this posture. So the first is that your right hip rolls off the ground, or that your right shoulder, or really either shoulder, begins to hurt. So if you have a shoulder injury, sometimes this position in the arms can be painful. If that's the case, you just drop your arms, but try and maintain the stretch in the right side. So sometimes when you bring the arm down, you no longer feel the stretch at all. I definitely feel less with my arm in this position. I definitely feel more here, all right? But I don't lose the stretch completely. 4 minutes left. Just over a minute left. Okay, so let's gradually make our way to the other side. Please take your time with the transitions. So if you're not careful coming out of a yin pose, you might feel a lot of sensation in panic and think something bad is happening. And it may be the case. Generally, if you move more slowly, you're going to find that your body responds much better. And that way you don't have to do so much counter stretching, which can be problematic. Okay, so we're going to move over to the left side, is again what I recommend to start this posture. And then moving the right leg to the right, crossing left ankle over, we reach up and grab the left wrist with the right hand. And again, I'm going to move myself over to the side, and then I'm being sure to keep this left hip down so I'm not rolling onto my side. So I'm creating essentially a crescent moon or a C shape with my entire body. There are two things you want to check in every posture, and there are exceptions to this, and I'll try and let you know anytime it's an exception. But the first is that you feel the stretch in the target area, which again for us today is going to be this whole area, anywhere in there or all of that area. Okay? So you might not feel all of it, you might feel it localized. That's okay, as long as it's somewhere in here. It's also okay if you feel sensation elsewhere as well. You just need to feel it here. And then the other thing to check is that this feels safe for your body. And sometimes we might be very surprised by what makes our body feel unsafe. Now, I want to be very clear that just because something feels unsafe, that does not mean it is unsafe. But we want to err on the side of caution. So if doing something I feel unsafe for whatever reason, then I'm just going to assume that it is not good for me. And in that case, come out of the pose and then let me know so that I can give you further instruction. Got about 3 minutes left here. Just under a minute left. Okay, so unwinding and coming back onto your back to just relax for a few moments. Again, that's called a rebound. It is part of the practice. Just stilling the body, closing the eyes, and feeling the different sensations in the body. Now, a very interesting little tidbit that you may not know is the area where you feel the most discomfort is usually the area where you are receiving the most benefit. Now, that may not initially make a lot of sense unless you think about, again, maybe working out at the gym. So if I do a workout for my biceps, and then the next day my biceps are stiff and sore, I'm feeling the biceps, right? The biceps are kind of complaining, if you will. They're sore, they're stiff, they don't feel good. And yet we all understand that that means I'm building up that muscle group. That's why it's sore and stiff. So our joints really are not very different, except the sensation shouldn't be a lasting sensation of soreness. It's just a little bit of sensitivity when we come out of the pose, and it immediately begins to dissipate. All right, let's bring our legs in, we'll give them a little squeeze. And again, this is an important part of it. This might seem like a kind of like a throwaway between the postures, but that is not the case. This is an important part of the practice, counter stretching, and this is just called the leg cradle. Very simple, I just move around however feels right for my body. And then to come up, we'll hinge up this time. So same movement, but this time right before my feet touch, I pop them up and then use the legs for leverage to come up to seated. Okay, so now we do a tabletop and what's called marauding bear pose. This is another counter stretch / warm up. So moving the torso around, head and neck. Again, what feels good in your body, what stretches the sensitive areas out and reduces that feeling of sensitivity and vulnerability. That's what we want to do right now. And then when you're done with that, you can come into this position, downward dog. Same idea here. Moving around, pedaling out, giving everything a good stretch. And then from there, we come forward onto our belly, and this is called sleeping swan. Okay, so we come down, or no, sorry, not sleeping swan, Sphinx. Okay, so Sphinx, come down onto the elbows. Elbows are directly below my shoulders. Okay, and I want to feel a little bit of gentle compression here in my low back. Now, what if I don't feel that? Well, let's look at what if it's too much first. So if this is too much, then I just bring my elbows forward and that brings me down. I think more common is this is not enough. So I have a few options. One is to take my hands a little wider, like so, and push myself back. So that's called a seal pose. And if that's not enough, I can even walk my hands back further. Another option is to prop your elbows up on something like a couple of blocks, like I have there, to push you back, and that'll give you more compression. So unlike the forward folds where we need to be really gentle and not pull into the posture, in back bends, if you have a healthy back, and that's a big if you have a healthy back, you can be quite aggressive in back bending and actually enhance the effects of the yin postures. And this is just because of the way our body is put together. So forward folding, you want to be careful about being too aggressive in yin postures, but in back bends you can be quite aggressive as long as, again, your spine is healthy. That's, again, a big if. So if there's pinching when you're doing this, if you have problems afterwards, then again, you may need to reevaluate whether or not it's a good idea. We've got about 3 minutes left here. A few quick other options are legs together or apart, shoulders depressed or relaxed, head held up, dropped back, or dropped forward. Okay, so very slowly, again, slow movement is usually a good idea after doing a yin posture. It gives your joints time to respond to the movement. This is why we hold yin postures for such a long time. Okay, it's not going to have the same effect if we come in and out of a pose, not the same effect on our fascia. So nice and slow, we come on down, rest on your belly for a few moments, and then when you sense that you're ready, you can come back into a kneeling position. Okay, so you can sit on your heels, between your heels, or on a block that is between your heels. The key in this posture is to do this without hurting your ankles or your knees. Okay, so again, this position like this, your toes can point back or out to the sides. Again, no pain here, no pain here or here in the hips. If your knees hurt, try sitting on something or take your knees wider. All right. Now another option here, but you have to have the props for it, is to do what's called a supported bridge. So this is called a saddle pose. And if you feel a stretch in the front of your thighs, sitting upright, you stay there. If you don't, you begin lowering back. So hands, elbows onto one of those big pillows, a bolster, crown of your head, or all the way back onto your back. Okay, so this is what's called a full saddle pose. Great posture if you can do it safely. And again, that can be a big if. Some people, minority people, may never be able to do this safely, and that's okay. The other option for those people is what's called a supported bridge. So supported bridge, I grab a yoga block or something similar you have at home, something that can support the weight of your body. You lift your hips up, place the block under your hips. There are 3 positions, right? So I choose the one that is appropriate for my flexibility. And then I can straighten out my legs and bring my arms overhead. And what I'm trying to do here is stretch the front of my body. So maybe my belly, the front of my thighs in this supported bridge position, okay? So both of them are advantageous. If for some reason you can't do either, then repeat the last pose that we did, the Sphinx / seal pose. Maybe you'll be able to go a little further. Now, one of the worst things that you can do when you're doing a yoga class is to just sit a pose out. Now, sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes it really is necessary. You know, if you're recovering from a lot of physical trauma, your body is just barely able to do any movement, then maybe your first few yoga classes back, you're just constantly taking a break, and that's okay. But in general, if you're relatively healthy, then instead of taking a break when everyone else is doing something that you find challenging, talk to the teacher and find an alternate. If it's a good yoga teacher, then they're going to be able to suggest something else that you can do that will work the body in a similar way, because each posture is giving us certain benefits. That's the intention, is it's supposed to benefit us in certain ways. And when we skip a pose or poses, we're not getting those benefits, right? So we sign up for yoga because we want certain physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual benefits. If I'm sitting on the sidelines, I'm not going to get those benefits. All right, got about 3 minutes left here. less than a minute. Okay, again, please take your time. You're slowly making your way out of that pose, back onto your back. Again, if you can do that before you counter stretch, this is ideal. You allow yourself to feel that sensitivity. Those are the areas that are receiving the most benefit. So let me speak a little bit about my personal experience. I came out of the pose a little early so I could ring the gong, and when I did, I rested for a moment and I felt a lot of discomfort and pain in my back. Now again, I've been doing this a long time, so it was not alarming. It was very intense. So if I had not done this before, I might have been very scared that I'd actually just hurt myself. But I just relaxed, I allowed the sensations to come and wash over me, and then they very quickly began to dissipate. And once they did, I got up and I rang the gong to tell you all it's time to come out. So this is what we want to experience. If we don't feel any discomfort, then there's a chance that we didn't actually really benefit much from that last posture. We didn't actually go far enough to benefit. And again, with a little bit of practice, this begins to become second nature. All right, let's bring our legs in. We'll give them a little squeeze. We have one last set here. So again, I'm still feeling some of that discomfort. What I'm trying to do now is to alleviate that with movement. From the Taoist perspective, Yin Yoga has been influenced quite a lot from Taoism. Yin and Yang balance one another. So Yin, one of the qualities of Yin is stillness. One of the qualities of Yang is movement. So after 10 minutes of stillness in a couple of Yin postures, I want to move to create balance. Okay, our final set is going to be a set of twists. So we take our right leg over our left leg. You can lock ankles or not, it's completely up to you. And then we drop those knees to the left. The main thing I want to happen here is that my right hip is drawn over my left hip while my shoulders remain close to the ground. Now, I want to be clear, your shoulder may not be touching the ground. Mine is not. Are my knees touching the ground? No. So if they aren't, and that feels unsafe, take something, one of these blocks, a folded blanket, roll up a towel, put it underneath your legs or your shoulder. It doesn't matter which. However, if you feel that this is okay, you can just let your shoulder and your knees be in the air. That's what I'm doing, okay? And again, we'll be here for 5 minutes. A few other things to consider are the position of your arm, whether that arm is straight or bent, both arms really. So I have my left hand on my knees. It could be up here, it could be really anywhere. Same with the right arm, straight or bent, high or low. And your head, are you looking straight up, to the right or to the left? There's no one correct position for the body. Every body is different and your body changes from day to day. The important thing is to feel the posture, how it's affecting your body, and to try and put your body in the position where it's getting the best stretch or stretches while it's also safe. That position can be different for everybody. Okay, taking your time and just gradually making your way back through the center position and then coming over to the other side. This is called twisted roots. And one other thing you might consider that I don't think I mentioned on the first side is the position of your legs. The position of your legs. So knees higher or lower. Knees higher tends to bring the influence of the twist higher in your spine, higher up your back. It also tends to be a deeper twist. Deeper does not mean better. I need to mention that almost any time I say that word, because I think there's a very common misconception in yoga, even among yoga teachers, that deeper or further is inherently better, and that is just simply not the case. So we want to let go of that idea that this is some kind of a contest to see how flexible we can become, because that's a good way to get injured sooner or later. Rather, stretching is good for your body. So forget about how flexible you are. Just stretch your body on a regular basis. Why? Because it's good for you. Just like working out. So you can think of working out and stretching as the yin and yang of maintaining the health of your body. If you do something to strengthen your body, you then want to stretch those muscles out. And you could say vice versa. If you're stretching, then you want to do something to work those muscles as well. This is a little bit like night and day. So if you get up and you do stuff throughout your day, then you're going to need some rest. After you rest, you want to get up and do something, be active for a while. So this is just how the universe is constructed. This isn't particular to yoga or to Taoism or me personally. This isn't just my personal recommendation. This is just sort of the way that things are. There's a balance, and when we strike the right balance, we tend to naturally feel very healthy and happy. When we don't strike the right balance, life tends to feel like an uphill struggle. So if you're feeling like you're pushing a boulder up a hill or you're swimming upstream, then from my perspective, from the perspective of yoga and Taoism, that means that there's some kind of imbalance in your life. Life shouldn't be such a struggle. It really should feel like a joy. Okay, so again, we'll unwind back onto our back and relax for a moment. That's called the rebound. So how was that, guys? I hope you enjoyed it. I think that's one of my easier sequences. There's some that are more challenging, and one misconception is that yin isn't ever challenging, and that's not been my experience with the practice, especially for certain body types. So today's class, though, hopefully was relatively easy, and I say that again, relatively. You may have still had difficulty with some of the postures. Either way, I'd love to hear from you down below. If you had a great time, it was easy, if something was challenging, if you have a question for me, or you just want to say hi. Also, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so. And if you got something from the video, give me a thumbs up. Thanks so much, and I'll see you next time. Namaste.